What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, it looks like we're starting to get some movement here when it comes to Nintendo's next platform that's basically been dubbed the Switch 2 by the internet, as a report broke yesterday from VGC detailing what appears to be features from a development kit for the system. We'll go over all of that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a big-time update for the PlayStation 5 that actually removes a feature from the PlayStation systems that have been around for about 17 years now. And we'll also be taking a look at some rumors that have popped up around a big remake coming from the Elder Scrolls series. In fact, it's an entry that I'm sure many people started with. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure to hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Sakurai and Smash Brothers. As we know, Sakurai basically run Smash Brothers at this point, or at least the series from its inception to now with Smash Brothers Ultimate. But with that basically out of the way, on to the future, what would Nintendo do for the next entry in the franchise? Well, Masahiro Sakurai did talk about this on his YouTube channel in a video, and we can see this transcribed over on Eurogamer, with Sakurai pondering what happens next time. I mean, whatever comes after Smash Bros. Ultimate, one option would be to separate the series from the original creator. But for now, at least, I can't really imagine a Smash Bros. Title without me. You might think that's a natural stance for someone in my role, but I say so speaking objectively. I feel the same way former Nintendo president Satoru Iwata did when we formed the team for Smash Bros. Brawl. At present, we don't have someone who can simply take the reins, and from there it basically alludes to the idea of him doing another game for Super Smash Brothers. And really, he kind of discussed the idea of how would you maybe go about rebooting the franchise? Would you basically take Ultimate, move it up? Trying to figure out what would be the path forward. And I actually have thought about this multiple times since Ultimate. I mean, it's called Ultimate for a reason. It is like the ultimate version of Smash Brothers at this point. Maybe a reboot's in line, and would Sakurai really come back for what could be a 5 or 6 year development time for the next entry to reinvent the whole thing? I guess we'll see, but seems like something that would set up nicely for Nintendo's next generation device that we'll get to here in a minute. Also, with Gamescom coming up in August, it does appear that Microsoft is setting up for a pretty big showing for the Xbox. This posted up by Insider Gaming, who had some knowledge around the situation, saying this seemingly isn't just marketing talk either when it comes to their biggest booths and presence ever at Gamescom for Microsoft. Says, with Insider Gaming being told by its sources that the team is going all out for this year's annual event. Titles that they expect to be there and even playable includes Forza Motorsport, Stalker 2, and Towerborn, which probably means we'll see some information around Stalker 2, I assume, in terms of a release date. They've gone through a lot, obviously, with what's going on with Russia, Ukraine, and they also had like dev builds leak out and were unlocked, so people were basically checking out the files, the builds, all these different things they've done that normally would be locked away within their company on servers and all of this. So it's been a development for this game. I would like to see a good showing for it and get that release date that seems like it's setting up for 2024, but look forward in a couple of weeks to Gamescom and we can see more. Oh, and Bombrush Cyberfunk, which is essentially a spiritual successor to the Jet Set Radio series, is slated for release on August 18th, that being on the Switch and PC, and it also looks like it will be going to other platforms for PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series just a couple of weeks later. There was a new trailer that was released kind of talking about this, and it will be releasing on those other platforms September 1st. So, Switch and PC through Steam, August 18th, Xbox One, Xbox Series, PS4, PS5, September 1st. It's kind of an odd release schedule there. I don't know, maybe just a couple extra weeks for certification on the PlayStation and Xbox platforms, but either way, it'll all be there in September, essentially, and will be coming out at a price of $40. So I'll be checking it out. I do enjoy Jet Set Radio, and I'm curious to see what Bombrush Cyberfunk has to offer. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo and their next generation device that we're basically going to refer to at this time as Switch 2, but I feel like Nintendo's going to call it something completely different. Although it could be like new Nintendo Switch, or you feel like they would use the Switch branding. It's very, very strong right now. But Either way, let's discuss the report that has now been posted and also corroborated by Eurogamer. This, though, the original writing came from VGC. We can see the headline here where they say, development kits for Nintendo's next console are now with key partner studios with launch planned for next year, sources have told VGC. Now, the reasoning they actually talk about when it comes to the second half of 2024, which is about where I was kind of expecting it, like holiday 2024, could be September or October even, just to give them time for even a restock heading into December with the Christmas shopping and all of that there. But essentially, they want to make sure they have enough stock for launch, so maybe it's just a longer manufacturing period, but either way, it appears VGC had some sources at key studios, we'll say key partners, who now have their hands on development kits or are ready to talk about the fact that they have development kits. Very possible these have been out and about for longer, but now they're just ready to discuss some of the features that they're running into. And while some of these may be a bit obvious sounding, especially with a lot of the speculation that we've had following up the Switch, I mean, this is technically a report more or less working to confirm that, one, it will at least be something that's playable as a handheld device, so go figure. Nintendo probably going to stick with that hybrid concept. However, they also discuss that it would be an LCD screen instead of the OLED display that we have in the top-of-the-line Switch now, which, I mean, yeah, that's kind of a step back either way. No matter which way you look at it, OLED to LCD, I guess they could maybe say, oh yeah, it also has higher refresh rates, variable refresh rate, a lot of things they could do there outside of it just, having a better contrast, colors, and all this with OLED. Still, though, that's kind of disappointing to hear that. But based on what I've experienced with the Steam Deck or the ROG Ally, they could probably get away with an LCD fine, especially if the other parts of the system that maybe they are cost-cutting here for the screen benefit from it. For example, storage is brought up, of course, the Switch sitting at 32 gigabytes or 64 gigabytes for the OLED model. You figure Nintendo wants to go up a bit higher than that. I'd like to assume that they'll launch with at least 128 gigabytes built in, but Nintendo tends to skimp on internal memory basically across the board for all of their systems up to this point. But even 128 gigabytes in the current climate, with games coming in at like 100 gigabytes, almost minimum at times for the Xbox Series and the PlayStation 5, doesn't feel like that much anyway. VGC has also worked to confirm that it will accept physical games, so Nintendo, as I think many of us assume based on their physical sales that we see on the charts, are going to stick with selling games in stores, I think, as long as possible, right? They will be the last holdout, as we already see Microsoft and Sony work towards having just all digital systems with the Series S and the PlayStation 5 digital. But the big question now that people are really talking about has to do once again with backwards compatibility. It's a conversation we've had for a bit, and unfortunately, they are unable to confirm if there would be backwards compatibility or not. And they even bring up some reasoning here from third-party publishers. They say to have expressed concern that legacy support for Switch games could negatively affect sales of next-gen titles. And a few things here. One, sure, if you're a third-party publisher, your job is to just extract as much money as possible from the new platform through way of software. You're not there to hold up the platform, actually sell more systems or anything. That's not your job. You're not there to bolster the ecosystem for the sake of the ecosystem. You're just trying to sell as many games as you can with your logo on it. So if you're someone like Ubisoft or EA or Activision or name some other large third-party company, and maybe you have a game on the Switch now, you probably would like to be able to resell it as a definitive edition. Sparks of Hope, Ubisoft, great example. They've already discussed some of the more disappointing numbers that they've gotten in for sales around that game. I'm sure they'd love to be able to repackage it with the DLC as a definitive edition, now in 4K, now probably $70, and release it on the new platform when I guess Nintendo would have cut off the entirety of the old library, and Ubisoft might be there within the first year with that offering, and there's less to pick from, right? I think that's still one of the reasons that 1-2 Switch sold as well as it did, because there wasn't a lot of software for the Switch, obviously, when it first came out. But it is important to note that this is not Nintendo saying, it would cannibalize sales. I'm sure Nintendo has no problem selling older Switch games that are backwards compatible with this new system for a long time. I don't think Nintendo is going to lose sleep over any of that. So backwards compatibility still up in the air, but it only makes sense based on what Nintendo has said that there will be some sort of backwards compatibility. How will they do it? That's still to be determined, but I mean, they want a smooth transition. The smoothest transition I've seen so far when it comes to generation from an old to a new one was with the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series, where you remove the old box, you put the new box in, Entertainment Center, plug it in, all this, and then you sign in with your account, and any games you had digitally work, and then any discs that you have, you pop in, and they also work. So hopefully Nintendo realizes that in the market now that is more and more a digital landscape and pushes for backwards compatibility. But we'll see if anyone else can maybe get some information around that, as Eurogamer did work to corroborate this one. Maybe they're out there asking around, seeing if anyone can confirm what the plans are for backwards compatibility. But it is good to see some actual reports get out there now that have also been corroborated around Nintendo's next-gen device. Something tells me things will pick up in the news cycle as we go along from legitimate sources, not like random 4chan posts or something. So interesting stuff here going forward towards the end of this year. And then to start off 2024 in that first half, when we should see this, I believe, unveiled by Nintendo. Next up, let's talk about a big update for the PlayStation 5 that is currently rolling out to beta testers for these different firmware updates from Sony. They did say that they're planning to roll this update out officially to everyone later on this year, and there's a bunch of little updates for ease of access, accessibility, all this, but there were two features in here that I thought were at least interesting and definitely wanted to bring up. With one, you can see here being you can mute the PS5 beep sound. So, I mean, since the PlayStation 3, all right, so the last couple of generations, whenever you turn the system on, it makes a very audible beep, right? And it's funny because I would hear parents who would come in to the stores and stuff, whether with the PS3 and the PS4, definitely with the PS3 though, that one was like extra loud for I remember. And they'd be able to tell, obviously, when their kids were trying to turn on the system, whether it's like after bedtime or if they're grounded or something. So now the PlayStation 5 will no longer be telling on gamers to their parents if they're turning it on when they shouldn't be. The other big part of the update has to do with M.2 drives, as it looks like they're going to move the maximum capacity from 4 terabytes up to 8 terabytes, which sounds crazy, I know, but I mean, if we're talking about a PlayStation 5 Pro maybe next year, and then they're talking about 8K support, maybe there'll be PlayStation 5 Pro optimized games with 8K textures and all this, and we end up seeing like 150 to 200 gigabyte games being like a minimum thing. Game file sizes, right, is getting out of control. We just talked about the next Switch having 128 gigabytes of onboard storage, and here we are now with these PlayStation 5 Pro games being larger than that. But in this case, though, I mean, 4 terabyte NVMe drives are getting down in price, and I guess if they can push it, why not? It's an open market for them, and 8 terabyte NVMe drives start showing up for decent prices, then hey, at least have the option to do it. Otherwise, you stick to like a 1, 2, or 4 terabyte, and you'll be fine. Next up, let's talk about a bit of a surprising remake coming from Bethesda, and this would be for the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. Now, the setup here is kind of weird because it has to do with a post that was made on the Reddit Gaming Leaks and Rumors forum. And according to mods there, this poster did at least prove in some way that they had worked at Virtuos. So, ex-employee, maybe they had, I don't know, a pay stub, an ID, something. Although you can, you could technically make any of that, forge it, what have you, if you want to have an elaborate prank for a leak and stuff. But we'll just, for now, pretend that this is all on the up and up. And you can see this here posted up by Xfire as the original post was removed. So, again, you can kind of think about that a bit, that the poster remove it because they realized, oh, this has gone a bit far, or did Virtuos and Bethesda not want it up there? Well, there you go. Anyway, this from Xfire saying that the biggest project that was mentioned that was a lot of people ran with and wanted to discuss was Project Alter, which is described as a remaster or remake of Oblivion. And according to the source, it's still unclear if it's going to be a full remake, but the development team uses a pairing system using both an Unreal Engine 5 project and the old Oblivion one. That's interesting. Now, they're looking for it to be out before next year or 2024, or by early 2025, this depending if it's a remake or remaster. I don't think it's gonna be one of those situations where you hit a button and it goes between the old visuals and the new visuals. That'd be kind of cool though, but if they're building UE5 and then alongside the engine for Oblivion, which I believe was Gamebryo, and that eventually went on to be the basis of Creation Engine. Now they're up to Creation Engine 2. It seems kind of strange that they would kind of mash these two engines together or kind of mix them up so that I guess Oblivion looks and runs better, but also still has the same feel of the original. The thing is here, this is probably for a lot of people their first trip into the Elder Scrolls series, right? Remember with the Xbox 360, very early on, Oblivion came out and it was this incredible experience at the time, also on PC. And the thing is, Morrowind, that's the one that really needs the remake because it is definitely rough around the edges and it pushed the original Xbox to its absolute limit, but it was clunky and is kind of tough to play. So I understand, I'm sure that many people who just kind of passed on that one and then got sucked in by Oblivion, which I think was definitely geared a bit more towards the more casual gamer, the more mainstream, definitely with its approachable design, at least when compared to Morrowind. But either way, I wouldn't mind seeing Oblivion get remade. I think it'd be kind of interesting, especially with the game continue to age and visuals not necessarily holding up to what we see in modern times. And the fact that Elder Scrolls 6 probably a ways off, like that might be one of the last games of this generation, or believe it or not, one of the first games of next generation. So why not kind of fill in the gaps with some Fallout remaster remakes and maybe an Oblivion remake as well. But maybe we'll hear about this next year, or we'll find out that this Reddit post was one massive ruse and waste of time. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about the growing PC gaming handheld market, because it seems like more and more manufacturers want to jump in with their own handheld to sell. Obviously, the Steam Deck did pretty well and maybe set up a lot of these companies to really make the push after what they also saw with the Switch. But in this case, with the ROG Ally, and now it looks like Lenovo trying to get into the fold here. And this was an exclusive posted up we can see over on Windows Central. This from Jez Corden, who says Lenovo is working on a Windows gaming or PC gaming handheld called the Legion Go. Now, according to Jez Corden, it's similar to the devices like the Steam Deck, like the Asus ROG Ally. It's going to sport the AMD Phoenix processors, 8-inch display, and they say it could look similar to Lenovo's previously leaked Lenovo Legion Play Android device. That never came out, but apparently it was supposed to be kind of similar to what we saw with the Logitech G Cloud, where it would have streaming capabilities, as well as be able to play some Android games. The biggest thing here is, while they could have varying build qualities or internals or any of those sorts of things, you're still running Windows that is just not ready for this mass push for PC gaming on handhelds like display and controls and stuff. Microsoft really needs to get with that and figure it out, because unless any of these companies are going to develop their own OS or a really, really good front end that kind of disguises the shortcomings of Windows, the Steam Deck, to be honest, for PC gaming, is probably going to be the go-to every time. So I'm hoping Microsoft can get all of that worked out, because once they figure out Windows on these handheld devices, it's going to be a really cool experience. And I'm hoping for a future like that, because I think some of these handhelds are legitimately interesting to take a look at. Just got to figure out the software. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're going to take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, if you have a Switch, which way do you play it most? Okay, 53% are docked, which means they don't care if it's an OLED or an LCD, and then 47% are handheld. So that it is still tough, because that OLED display would be nice. Again, these are reports right now, so who knows, maybe Nintendo has two SKUs they're going to launch with. Maybe there'll be a cheaper one and a more expensive one that runs the same chip. It just depends on what you want to include around that with maybe a nicer casing, maybe the OLED display, maybe a larger display. So a lot of possibilities and a lot of unknowns currently. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Vaughn, who says, gotta love how hearing a game being 5 times shorter than the last being a selling point. Yeah, for the longest time, especially like the start of that Xbox 360, PS3 generation up to the PS4 and the Xbox One, it was always, we got to make these games bigger and bigger. These worlds got to be these massive sprawling worlds that, yeah, might be kind of empty, but look how large they are. And then how many enemies can we fit on screen? And now it's kind of like, can I just finish this game? Is that possible? Like, people are seeing 20 to 30 hours for Assassin's Creed Mirage. They're like, oh, whew, thank you. So we're just kind of working backwards now, where people start to be less impressed with these massive open world games, and to be honest, just more fatigued by them. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Was the recent reports around Nintendo's next generation device with the LCD screen, it's supporting physical cartridges, and then the question around backwards compatibility. And then also, what about that PlayStation 5 update that lets you turn off the startup beep for your system? And then Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. Would you like to see that actually remade in Unreal Engine 5 mixed with, apparently, Gamebryo? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.